I love Souls games. Bloodborne, Sekiro, Elden Ring. Honestly, pretty much anything FromSoftware throws at us, I'm probably gonna play it. I love the difficulty, the weird lore, and opening a door just to realize I created a shortcut back to an area where I got my cheeks violently clapped 30 minutes ago. But I'm starting to get really tired of every game looking at Dark Souls and learning the dumbest possible lesson from it. Because apparently, according to half of the industry, making a Souls-like is very simple. You add a stamina bar, dodge roll, bonfires, a big bad boss behind a fog wall, currency you lose when you die, and make the most fucking confusing lore ever. Congrats, you made Dark Souls. Except no, you didn't. You made a game that looks like Dark Souls from a distance, but doesn't understand why Dark Souls worked. Because Dark Souls was never just a hard game where you roll a lot and try not to die. The difficulty worked because the world was built around it. The shortcuts, enemy placement, the atmosphere, they all mattered. Even the weird cryptic lore felt like it belonged in that dying, miserable world. But a lot of these Souls-like games feel like they just took the surface level stuff and called it a day. And that's the part that annoys me. Because I don't hate Souls-like, I actually love the genre when it's well done. But not every dark fantasy game needs to be squeezed into that same formula. The AA space feels like one of the biggest offenders here. At least smaller games like Mortal Shell, even with obvious flaws, tried to bring something new to the table. It had its own ideas, its own weird identity, and it actually felt like it was trying to do more than just copy the homework. But a lot of AA Souls-likes feel like they were made from a checklist, shipped out, and then everybody acts surprised when the players don't lose their minds over it. And yeah, there are good ones. I'm not trying to say everything not made by FromSoft is trash. Lies of P is amazing. Same with Black Myth Wukong. Everybody keeps saying Neo is amazing too, but I haven't played it, so I'm not going to sit here and pretend I have a take. The problem is not that Souls-likes exist, the problem is we keep getting the same sloppy mush served to us over and over again, where every dark fantasy action game feels like it got shoved into a Souls-like machine, whether it needed or not. We are missing a lot of potentially great games because they got lost in this Souls-like trend. I mean, make a Souls-like if you can make it like Lies of P, but if the outcome is closer to Lords of Fallen, maybe don't force the Souls formula into your game just because it sounds good on a paper. We can always use a gritty dark world with compelling RPG set inside it. I would take that any day over a half-assed Souls-like. Look at Tainted Grail. That game could have easily been turned into another Souls-like, but the first-person RPG approach fits it way better. And because of that, the game actually feels like its own thing instead of just another game trying to roll behind a boss for 8 minutes. Also, if you want to make a game hard, just make it hard. You don't have to use the word Souls to convince people of its difficulty. Difficulty existed before Dark Souls, and this is where I think a lot of developers get it wrong. They act like difficulty is the thing people loved about Dark Souls, when really difficulty was just one part of it. A game being hard doesn't automatically make it interesting. A boss killing me in 2 hits doesn't mean the combat is deep. It might mean just that I'm getting insta-clapped by a troll with a club. Dark Souls made failure feel like learning. A lot of bad Souls-likes make failure feel like the game wasting your time and then pretending that's old school design. There's a huge difference. When I die in a good Souls game, most of the time I know what I did wrong. I got greedy, I panicked, I mistimed something. I walk into the room like an idiot because apparently I still haven't learned that every corner in these games is legally required to contain some goblin waiting to ruin your day. But in bad Souls-like, sometimes it just feels cheap. And then people defend it by saying, well, it's supposed to be hard. Yeah, so is fucking filing taxes, but I'm not calling that peak game design. At the end of the day, I just want good games. And honestly, I feel like a lot of games would benefit way more from not being Souls-like. Because forcing everything into that formula doesn't just hurt those games, it waters down the genre too. If every dark fantasy game becomes a Souls-like, then Souls-like as a genre stops feeling special. It just becomes the default setting for any game with a sword and a roll button. And that is boring. Subscribe and I love you. Bye.